One, that there is recession in the country. The other reason is people usually want to change field. And the third one, it's personal interest. So let us talk about them in detail now.
Welcome back, and we are going to talk about, as promised, whether or not you should do a higher degree. And normally when we talk about a higher degree, it is taught, after school. So bachelor's is definitely a higher degree, but then master's and PhD are considered postgraduate degrees, which means after your undergraduate degree. Should you do it? Should you not do it? Why should you do it? When should you do it? I've been thinking about it for some time, and I've come up with three main reasons that I think people actually go back to school after having an undergraduate degree. First of all, I think it's very important to recognize that in today's world, as a friend said, having a bachelor's degree is almost like getting a driver's license. It's a way of feeling normal. It may change as the world is changing. I think in the next 2 or 3 decades, the way we look at education is definitely going to change. But at least for now, the basic undergraduate degree is considered a requirement because that was considered a level of education that the person has, minimum. It used to be probably high school at some point, less than that at some point, but now the minimum is undergraduate. That means you've actually gone through the rigors of 3 to 4 years of undergraduate degree in your country or any other country. I say 3 or 4 because those are the major, that's the regular timeline that is given for an undergraduate degree. Most of the times in countries that pay for the education, say all over Europe, India, Africa, Latin America, undergraduate degrees can be 3 years. But in the US, it has been 4 years. And there is another reason, and I will discuss that in another video, why US usually takes 4 years. Other than the fact that people think that students will actually pay more for 4 years, there are other reasons, contribute to that 4 years of education for undergraduates.
So the three main reasons that I have come up with, I've been thinking about why people go back to grad school is one, that there is recession in the country. That means there's dearth of jobs. There is a general idea that, you're not getting jobs unless you actually go back and upgrade your skills. The other reason is, people usually want to change fields. So they're like, okay, let me do a master's degree in another area so then I can get another skill to whatever I'd earned in my undergraduate. And the third one is that it's personal interest. You're like, okay, so I am really interested in this field, and it will either, I will move into a completely new career, or it will add to what I have done. So let us talk about them in detail now.
So when I first started my master's degree in the US, I realized that there were a lot of adult learners in our class. There were, I think, more than half the Americans who were in the class were actually adult or what they call returning learners, which means they had already had several years in the workforce and they were coming back. Some of them had served in the army and they were returning. But all the foreign or international students were fresh graduates. We had just finished our undergraduate degree, say about 3 or 4, between the 3 or 4 years period of time. Most of them were fresh graduates right from undergrad, started their masters. The master's that I did was called MSc, Masters in Science and Communications. And I took it because, as I've talked in the last video, that I wanted to tell stories. They had a television station, but in fact, it was something called instructional technology. It was a very interesting field, trying to look at technology and computers and how to use them in education, and also how to use them to write training programs. Most of the classes that we had, I think all of the classes that I had the first 2 semesters were between 6 and 9 p.m. in the evening. And I always wondered why, because we were so used to studying in the morning. Growing up in India, classes are usually in the morning. And then I realized that it was actually created, the program was actually created for returning people who were actually working during the day, and it was serving rural Pennsylvania. I learned a lot during that time because that was my first time using computers. I learned a lot of the things outside of what I had studied in India, and video editing skills, all of that I learned there. But it was a completely different thing from what I wanted to study. When I spoke to people in my class, they were all trying to upgrade their skills because of recession in the country. There was a dearth of jobs, and small town America had been hit, so they were all actually upgrading their skills. That's one reason you can get new skills. The other reason, the second reason for getting into graduate school is that you actually think that you want to change your field. You know, either you want to go from sciences to non-sciences or non-sciences to sciences. Now, you must have heard generally that it is almost impossible to move from non-sciences to sciences. If you have done an undergraduate degree in a non-science degree, sociology, psychology, economics, to move into pure sciences like chemistry, physics, biology would be very difficult. At least that's what we grew up listening in India. And it is true. And basically, the reason is because when you're studying sciences, the basic knowledge that you require in sciences is so much that when you go into a master's degree, it's very difficult to understand. I mean, imagine learning things about, formula of benzene, at master's level, or photosynthesis, trying to understand that. But actually, what you study in master's, it is based on the assumption that you already have a lot of base knowledge, which in social sciences, you have a little leverage. You can actually move from sciences to social sciences. It is easier to learn. But from personal experience, I will tell you that don't take it for granted, especially if you have a scientific mindset. Not trying to put social sciences down, because I have followed them and I think they have great value, but it is slightly easier to take up social sciences after sciences, and almost impossible to take up sciences after social sciences. In addition, this is my personal bias, I think if you have a scientific mindset, that bend of mind, that shows up early and you will go towards an undergraduate degree in sciences. Having said that, let me explain that don't take social sciences lightly, because today even social sciences has amassed so much of vocabulary that belongs to a certain field that you would not be able to, that the first few semesters can be confusing. Some of the authors and some of the theories are taken for granted. So for example, Habermas, Foucault, Marx, all these scholars, and what they talked about is sort of just assumed that you understand when you sit in master's or PhD classes. I clearly remember my first semester when somebody in the class was talking about, DOI, and I was so confused and terrified. DOI stands for diffusion of innovation. It happens to be one of my favorite theories, but at the time, I was scared to ask questions because I'd never heard of that. I'd come from industry. My undergraduate is in home economics and my master's is in instructional technology. I had never studied media theories. And so, it was confusing. Once I got to learn it, then it became one of my favorite theories. I've written about it, I've talked about it. But remember, even when you're moving from sciences to non-sciences, there is a lot of work to be done. And if you're prepared for it, best wishes to you. The last reason is personal interest. If you're really interested in a field and you want to do something different from what you had done in undergrad, whether you want to continue in the same area that you did your undergrad in or a new area, that personal interest overrides everything. Because if you are really interested in what you want to do, then you will invest time. And in the long run, it will pay off. Remember this though, that just because you're interested in it, it may not always be lucrative. Be mindful of that. It's all nice to say I want to study for the sake of studying, which is great if that's what you want to do. But remember, consider that money is important. What will be your return for investing your time and money, the 2 or 5 years, because 2 years masters, there are 1 year masters now, and I will talk about that in another video. 2 years masters or 4 to 5 years of PhD, you're investing that much time. You're also investing money, because that money could be spent either saving or earning. And then, of course, that also affects your personal relationships, because you just don't have the time. It's a different kind of investment than simply working where you're getting money. In this case, you are working, you may have taken loans, you have to prove yourself with grades, and then you have to look for jobs. So when you're investing that kind of a time, ask yourselves, what do I want out of this degree? Why am I doing it? If you're doing it because you have enough money and you don't care about what comes after that, that's fine. I've seen a lot of people who go to other countries, especially Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and some countries in Europe, including the UK. Students come because their aim is eventually to live in that country. That's a different kind of investment. be cognizant of that. If you're interested in learning, your time, attention, and interest will actually define, how much you spend on it, and will actually define the outcome and satisfaction. So ask yourselves, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because there's a lack of jobs, there's the dearth of jobs, and you want to upscale your skills? Are you doing it because you want to switch a field? Okay, or you're doing it because it's your personal interest. It could be all three, it could be any one of them, but if you're not interested in something that you're doing and you're just doing it because somebody told you or you have money, in the long run, I don't think it will pay off. If you have money, it doesn't matter. If you already have money, it doesn't matter. But it will be an investment of time and emotion. So it is your job to research what the program is about. And we will talk about in another video how to research for the programs that you want to go into and study. Thank you very much. Dhanyavad, and we'll talk again.